get their ass. Let's listen.
I think it just continues to illustrate what the majority feels. We are at a place where we feel like the proposals the leagues have sent haven't been good ones. And, you know, we want to continue to fight for what we know we deserve. And we hope that at some point the league decides to have that same, you know, sentiment towards us as well through the proposals that they.
That's Alysha Clark, Vice President of the WNBA Players Association, sitting down with Malika Andrews on NBA Today. And if you listen closely to what she's saying, you'll notice something critical. There's no optimism in her voice, no hint that a deal is close. Just carefully chosen words about fighting for what they deserve. This interview dropped 30 minutes before the content creator we just heard from hit record on his camera. And the timing matters, because what he's expressing is exactly what thousands of WNBA fans are feeling right now.
Now, is a strike still on the table for the players?
I mean, when you look at the vote that we took back in December, like, we didn't take that lightly at all. And it was almost a unanimous vote for yes, that, you know, a strike is on the table. And so as a union, we're going to use every tool that we have in our pocket to be able to fight and get what we know we deserve. So it's very much still on the table. And that is something that I think is clear as we continue to have these conversations with our union and the players in the league.
6 days. That's what's left before the drop-dead date for the 2025 WNBA season. 17 months of negotiations, and we're down to less than a week. The strike authorization vote that Alysha Clark just referenced, that happened back in December. Almost unanimous support from the players to walk away from the season if their demands aren't met. And those demands center on two main issues: revenue sharing and housing. The league's current offer sits at 15% revenue sharing. The players want 30%. That 15-point gap might as well be the Grand Canyon right now.
The gloves are off. Playtime's over. We have to be honest here. They're not going to get that 15%, that 30% revenue. They're just not going to get it. This is annoying. Day in, day out, 17 fucking months. We have been going through this. It is bad, it is unfair, and it is damn near unconstitutional.
Here's what makes this moment so critical. Caitlin Clark just finished her rookie season, bringing unprecedented attention to the WNBA. Record television ratings, sold-out arenas, mainstream media coverage that the league has never experienced before. The 2024 WNBA Finals averaged 1.6 million viewers on ESPN, up 70% from the previous year. Fever home games averaged 17,000 fans per night. These aren't marginal improvements. This is a seismic shift in the league's visibility and commercial potential. And right now, with all that momentum building, with new fans discovering the league, with sponsors finally paying attention, the season might not happen. That's the reality we're facing.
So, we, the players who decided to get on the call, speak to the PA, and are updated often. I also have a full podcast episode with Terry from last year. If anyone would like to learn, promoting her podcast. I'm extremely well informed and pre-prepared for any situation that comes from those negotiations. And as a veteran who chose to remain under contract, my anxiety levels are relatively low. We just want what's best for all the players and the future of the W.
Let's talk about what this means for content creators who built their channels around WNBA coverage. This creator mentions something that doesn't get discussed enough in these CBA negotiations: the ecosystem of independent media that grew around the league last year. YouTube channels, podcasts, social media accounts that exploded in popularity because of Caitlin Clark and the increased interest in women's basketball. These aren't ESPN analysts with guaranteed salaries. These are people who invested in equipment, spent hours creating content, built audiences around WNBA coverage, and now their viewership is tanking, their engagement is dropping, because nobody wants to watch 17 videos about CBA negotiations when they signed up to watch basketball analysis and game breakdowns. The creator says his channel is hurting financially. That's not dramatic exaggeration. That's the direct consequence of this prolonged negotiation process.
To me, this has nothing to do with race. I've seen some people pushing a race narrative. It's simply veteran players versus young players. The young players, from what I'm hearing, want to sign. They don't give a damn. They ready to play. It's the old players. They can't figure out what the hell is going on. It's y'all old ass, y'all old hags. Y'all don't know what's going on. Y'all can't figure out what y'all want to do. But rain on everybody else damn day.
Notice how he frames this as veteran players versus young players. That's an important distinction that's been bubbling under the surface of these negotiations. The veteran players who've been in the league for years, who've dealt with substandard salaries and conditions, who've had to play overseas every offseason just to make a living wage, they see this moment as their chance to fundamentally change the economics of the WNBA. They watched the league struggle for decades, now they see the popularity surge, and they want to capitalize on it. But the younger players, many of them just want to play. They're not the ones who suffered through the lean years. They're entering a league that's already more popular than it's ever been. The urgency feels different to them. That generational divide creates tension within the Players Association itself, even if nobody wants to say it publicly.
You're hurting our channels financially. You're hurting our viewership. You're hurting our engagement. This is very bad. A lot of content creators, we ain't backed by no ESPN. We ain't backed by people. Certain people like Rachel got a backing, but us independent creators, we're hurting because y'all can't get a deal done. Get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this one. Keep them bills on, and I'm going to continue.
Here's the fundamental problem with the 30% revenue sharing demand. The WNBA lost approximately $40 million in 2023, according to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's statements from that year. The league has never turned a profit in its 28-year history. Now you can argue about accounting methods and how the NBA structures the WNBA's finances. You can question whether the league could be profitable if it operated independently. Those are legitimate debates. But the reality is this. The NBA owners who fund the WNBA are being asked to give 30% of revenue to players when the league currently operates at a loss. That's not a negotiating position. That's a non-starter. And the players know it's a non-starter. Which raises the question, is this a genuine negotiating position, or is this about something else entirely? Let's break down what's actually happening here. Because the surface-level story about revenue sharing and housing doesn't capture the full complexity of this moment. First, the timing. The Players Association waited until the league hit peak popularity to opt out of their collective bargaining agreement. That's strategic. That's leverage. When the WNBA was averaging 400,000 viewers for playoff games, nobody had negotiating power. Now that they're averaging over 1 million, suddenly the players have something to threaten. No season means no Caitlin Clark, no Angel Reese, no Cameron Brink returning from her ACL injury, no storylines that casual fans are invested in. That's real leverage. Second, the public relations strategy. Notice how every player statement emphasizes fighting for what we deserve, and the league needs to value us. Those are carefully crafted messages designed to generate public sympathy. And to be clear, WNBA players absolutely deserve better compensation than they've historically received. The maximum salary in 2024 was $241,984. That's less than the NBA's minimum salary. The disparity is real, and it's significant. But here's where it gets complicated. The players are framing this as a respect issue, when it's fundamentally an economics issue. The WNBA generates approximately $200 million in annual revenue. The NBA generates over $10 billion. The revenue pools aren't comparable. Giving WNBA players 30% of revenue when the league loses money means the NBA owners are essentially paying players out of their own pockets to subsidize the WNBA. That's not a sustainable business model. Third, the housing situation. This is actually the more solvable problem, and the fact that it's still a sticking point tells you how far apart these two sides really are. Players want individual apartments in their team cities instead of shared housing. That's reasonable. That's professional. The cost to provide that is minimal compared to the overall economics of running a franchise. If housing is truly the deal breaker, this deal would be done already, which means housing isn't the real issue. It's a symptom of a deeper disconnect between what players expect and what the league is willing to provide. Fourth, the expansion factor. The WNBA just announced expansion teams in San Francisco, Toronto, and Portland, with an expansion fee of $50 million per team. That's $150 million in new capital coming into the league. The players see that number and think, where's our cut? The league sees that number and thinks, this is how we finally become financially stable. Both perspectives make sense, but they're incompatible. Fifth, and this is crucial, the Caitlin Clark effect. She's the reason this negotiation is happening now instead of in 2 years. Her popularity changed the equation. Her jersey sales, her television ratings, her ability to sell out arenas, it all created this moment. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. If the season doesn't happen, Caitlin Clark loses a year of her prime. Angel Reese loses momentum. Cameron Brink's comeback gets delayed. The players who benefited most from last year's popularity surge are the ones who have the most to lose from a strike. And that creates a fascinating dynamic. The veteran players who are driving these negotiations aren't the ones who generated the popularity surge. They're not the ones with signature shoe deals and national commercials, but they're the ones with the voting power in the Players Association. They're the ones who can authorize a strike that primarily hurts the young stars who actually brought the new fans to the league. Now let's talk about what happens if there's no season. The content creator we heard from is right to be frustrated. His channel suffers, his income drops, but that's just one small piece of the collateral damage. The new fans who discovered the WNBA last year, who bought tickets, who started following players on social media, who actually care about women's basketball for the first time, they're going to drift away. Not because they don't support the players, but because sports fandom requires consistency. You can't build a fan base and then take a year off. It doesn't work that way. The television networks that increased their coverage, that invested in production quality, that gave the WNBA prime broadcasting slots, they're going to reconsider those investments. The sponsors who finally started paying attention, who saw the value in associating their brands with women's basketball, they're going to question whether this league is stable enough to build long-term partnerships around. And here's the most frustrating part. The players are right about their core argument. They are underpaid relative to their value. They do deserve better conditions. The league absolutely should invest more in player compensation and benefits. But being right doesn't mean your negotiating strategy is smart. Being right doesn't mean you're not squandering the best opportunity the WNBA has ever had to build sustainable popularity. The comparison to other sports leagues doesn't help the players' case as much as they think it does. When the NBA players went on strike in 1998, the league was already massively popular and profitable. When the NHL lost an entire season to a lockout in 2004-2005, they had a century of history and a deeply embedded fan base to fall back on. The WNBA has neither of those advantages. This league is still building its foundation. A lost season doesn't just pause growth, it reverses it. So where does this end? 6 days from now, we'll have our answer. Either the league and players find compromise, or they don't. If they do find a deal, it'll probably look something like 20% revenue sharing with individual housing and some increased benefits. That's the middle ground that makes sense economically. The players won't get everything they want. The league will pay more than they wanted to. Everyone will claim victory. But if they don't find a deal, if the players actually strike, we're looking at a lost season that could set the WNBA back 5 years. All the momentum from Caitlin Clark's rookie year, gone. All the new fans who were just starting to care, gone. All the media coverage and sponsor interest, gone. And for what? To prove a point about respect? To force the NBA to subsidize losses at an even higher rate? The content creator we heard from said he's sick of making videos about this, that he wants to talk about basketball, that he came to this league because of Caitlin Clark, not because of labor negotiations. And you know what? That's most of the new fan base. They don't care about revenue sharing percentages. They don't want to pick sides between players and owners. They just want to watch elite basketball players compete at the highest level. The tragedy of this situation is that both sides have legitimate grievances, but neither side seems willing to acknowledge that timing matters. This isn't just about getting the best possible deal. It's about getting a deal that allows the league to capitalize on unprecedented popularity. It's about not wasting the opportunity that Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, and the rest of the 2024 rookie class created. 6 days left. The clock is ticking. And every day that passes without a deal is another day that fans lose interest, content creators lose income, and the WNBA loses the momentum it took 28 years to build. The players deserve better compensation. The league deserves a chance to grow. Those two things should not be mutually exclusive, but right now, they are. And that's why we're here, watching the clock run out on what should have been the WNBA's breakthrough moment. So here's my question for you. If you were in charge of these negotiations, what would you do? Would you give the players their 30% and risk the financial stability of the league? Would you hold firm at 15% and risk losing the season? Or is there a creative solution that nobody's talking about that could actually work? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I genuinely want to know how you would solve this. And if you're as frustrated as I am about this whole situation, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going to keep covering this story until it's resolved, one way or another.